Hello everyone, thank you for joining me for this video. It's like the worst time of the day right now to be filming. It's super sunny, but it is a super nice day today, and that's going to give me an opportunity today to talk about some dethatching that I'm going to be doing in the backyard. I wanted to take you along for that and kind of show you the process, so let's go. First off, let's talk a little bit about what thatch is. So thatch is going to be a buildup of organic matter on the soil, and you actually want a little bit of this to be there. We want maybe 1/4 to 1/2 inch or so to be there just to protect the soil, make sure it doesn't get a super amount of heat directly on the soil when you're walking on the grass and all that things. It kind of protects a little bit down there on the soil as well. So we want a little bit of it to be there. But then when we get a buildup of too much of this, it's going to do a few things. It's going to inhibit a lot of our air and our water and fertilizer and all that to get down into the soil and into the root zone right there where we need it to be. That's going to kind of make the grass look a little bit patchy. It's just not going to look as good as it should look. So from about an eye level view, my grass looks pretty good actually, and you don't notice too much of that thatch down in there. But then when you take a little bit of a closer look, you'll see that things are kind of building up a little bit more than I would like them to be. It's creating a problem there because it's just too thick. So the grass looks kind of patchy when you really take a close-up look of it. And so today we're going to be ripping out all that dead thatch, and then I'm also going to be putting down a little bit of seed, and then we'll start to water it. And then eventually I'll be adding a little bit of starter fertilizer too to that once that seed's about to germinate. And then after that, this thing should really start thriving and take off. So the past couple years I've been doing aerating, and that has worked really well for me because you leave those cores on top of there, and as they break down, all those microbes and things that are going on to break that down into the soil are also eating on that thatch layer. So that does help a lot, but it's not quite as good of a process as dethatching on its own. So because last year I bought a dethatching machine, this Greenworks one that I'm going to be showing you today, I decided that we would test it out again today and actually do a complete dethatching process. So that's what we're going to be doing, and I'm going to show you how this machine works right now. Right, so here's this Greenworks machine like I talked about. Essentially what happens here are these tines just kind of spin around, and as we go through the grass, it's going to rip out all that thatch and all that dead stuff that's in there. It's going to just shoot it out the back side of here. Then we'll end up picking it up either with a rake, or what I like to do is just put my bagger on my mower and pick it up that way. That's pretty much how the process works here. I'll show you exactly how this machine works and also how to set it to different settings. So this is a pretty simple setup as far as how it works to get the adjustment right on it. So whatever it says here at the top, which I don't know if you can read, it says low, that is going to be what you're setting at. So it just kind of moves this wheel up and down to set it into a setting there. So I have mine set at low right now. Last year when I was doing some dethatching, I actually had it set at the highest setting for my front yard. That seemed to work okay. But yesterday when I was going through this a little bit and doing a little bit of a test on my bluegrass, it's just so thick that I wasn't able to get down in there on the higher setting. So I went down to the lowest setting eventually after I tested it, and that's kind of what I came up with. But essentially you just pull this thing out, turn it to what you want, pop it back in, and that's it. So it's very, very simple. You just pull this out like that, put it down to the low setting for me right now, and there you have it. Next step then is pretty simple. Just plug it in, make sure you have a long enough extension cord for the area that you need to get to, and use a heavier extension cord if you can. I believe mine is a 14 gauge, so usually when you get the cheapest cords, that's going to be 16 gauge. And I haven't found too many problems with this thing heating up too much, so you might be okay with the cord, but if you just get a heavier cord, that's going to help out if possible. And I can't remember exactly what the manual says. I don't have it on me handy right now, but it is going to give you a guide there as far as what cord to use as well. So let's get out here and I'm going to show you how this thing works, how well it works. From my testing and from the limited use that I did last year, I found that it works really, really well without tearing out too much of your good grass and then just tearing out the stuff that you want to get rid of. So let's show you how it works. So it's very simple, but let me explain here what I'm doing real quick. So this little button right here is your little safety button that you have to push in order for you to pull up the lever to get the tines going. But I usually just like to lift the machine off the ground a little bit, get these things spinning before I place it into the grass, because if you start it down here, you're just going to start tearing into the grass right away. So you want to pull this up and then get it moving along a little bit before you start putting it into the ground. That's pretty much it. And then we're just going to go back and forth here in a few passes, and I'll show you kind of what comes out of the grass. Alright, that's a couple passes down, and I'll show you a view, kind of what it looks like here, but don't be alarmed, there's going to be some green stuff that comes out too as it kind of just rips through the grass, but it does a pretty good job of grabbing that dead stuff without doing too much damage to the existing grass there. So just like I said, don't be too alarmed, there's going to be some green that comes out too. That's okay, it's going to fill back in, no problem. So as far as pace goes, when I'm walking on that machine, I just kind of go at a gingerly pace and I listen for the motor. So it's kind of humming along at the same sound that it normally does, like even when you're not in the grass or very close to it. Then I know I'm walking at a good pace. If it starts to bog down a little bit, then I know I need to just slow my pace down a little bit and get through that thicker section of thatch right there. So that's usually what I do as far as how fast to walk there. But let's go through a few more passes, see what it looks like. Okay, a couple other things to mention while I think about it here is you definitely want to cut your grass a little bit lower if possible. I think the manual says that this thing's going to work best if the grass is cut at 2 inches or somewhere around there. And I found that if I let it get any taller than that, it just has trouble kind of getting through all that thickness. Now if you have a pretty thin lawn and it was a little bit taller, it might not be a problem. But that's kind of something to keep in mind, so I know if you keep your grass a lot taller, I'm not sure how well this would be able to tear through that. The other thing to mention, I usually go over each section twice, so I'll go down the line, that kind of opens it up a little bit, and then I'll come back up the other direction on that same line, and that seems to do the most tearing out there of the thatch part. So that's what I'm going to be doing here for the rest of the time, and then I'll eventually show you what I'm going to do after that, which is some overseeding and some watering. Get this thing back in shape because it will look a little bit rough after we do this process. Alright, the dethatching portion is done, and that's a pretty extensive job, I will say for sure. So definitely some time to do that if you want to do it right. Probably took me, I don't know, I didn't time it exactly, but it's definitely much more of a process compared to like mowing your lawn or something like that. So it's going to take you some time. Definitely keep that in mind. Now I'm going to be cleaning this thing up with my mower. Now you could rake this up if you had to. It's just going to be more work, but if you have a bagger for your mower, that's the best case scenario. It's going to suck all that stuff up, pick it up, and then just get rid of it. Okay, everything's pretty much nicely thinned out there now, so what I'm going to do next is put down some seed over this. And is this a process that you really have to do? No, not necessarily. If you really didn't want to put down seed now, that's okay. You could just hit it with some nitrogen, some fertilizer, and make sure that if it's not going to be raining anytime soon, that you hit it with some water to kind of get a jump start back going on that. But speaking of jump start, I'm going to be using this Jumpstart Kentucky Bluegrass from Seed Superstore. And the reason for this is that bluegrass is very slow to germinate. So because of this, my existing grass will pretty quickly outcompete all of that seed if I don't use something that germinates really quickly. So I could put down something like perennial ryegrass, which would be 4 to 7 days when you'd start to see it germinating. However, I have a 100% bluegrass backyard, so that's the way I want to keep it. So we're going to be using this bluegrass, hope that it comes up, and just the main thing when you're overseeding is make sure to keep it watered. Don't go crazy overwatering it, but you want to make sure that it does not dry out. Lastly, with this bluegrass, I have about 4,000 square feet in my backyard, and you want to go about 1 pound per 1,000 for overseeding, somewhere around there. So we're going to be just over 1 pound if I use half of this bag. So I'll just set my spreader at a low setting, just walk around in multiple directions until we have all the seed put down. So I'm just deciding to put down seed because I've thinned out the lawn enough that I want to get some new varieties mixed in with this bluegrass if possible. So even if a little bit of this takes hold, it's going to be nice just to get a fresh variety in there and give us a little bit of something different as far as what's back here. If you're interested in more lawn related content, I have tons of things on my channel for you to check out. I'd appreciate you checking out some more videos. Thank you so much for watching this one, and we'll see you next time.